So good morning, everyone. Uh, Yesterday, last lecture, we talked about how strain gauges can be used for measurement of forces, and we had gone further. We had seen some of the types of strain gauges, and thereafter, uh, we also saw that these tiny strain gauges, the resistance change in these tiny strain gauges is very small. We had seen, if you remember, if I have a strain gauge having a resistance of 120 ohm corresponding to 500 microstrain, that strain gauge was giving us the resistance change to the tune of 0.12, 0.12 ohm. So this resistance change is very small. So that's how we ended our lecture last time. We need a balancing circuit so that we can measure this small resistance change efficiently. So we discussed this Wheatstone bridge. We also discussed about two modes of operation of this Wheatstone bridge. One was null balance and the other was the deflection mode. Now this is the deflection mode in which we ended up saying that if I connect, these are the four resistances R1, R2, R3, R4, which are normally same. R1, R2, R3 and R4. Now in single arm bridge, R4, the resistance R4 is replaced by this strain gauge. And then when this strain gauge is subjected to change in length, there will be change in resistance. So resistance in this arm of the Wheatstone bridge changes and the bridge becomes unbalanced. And that's how the bridge starts giving me some output voltage delta V. I am giving some supply voltage, DC supply voltage, that is to the tune of maybe 5 to 6 volts DC. And then I get, for a single arm bridge, I get the bridge output in microvolt or millivolt. Okay, because the resistance changes are small. Okay, so this is how we ended. This was a single arm bridge configuration we discussed. But today we'll go a bit further and we'll see what are the other bridge configurations. Now, as you can see in the slide, you have this single arm bridge, the same sketch as you can see. Just focus on this diagram where the pointer is. This is called as a quarter bridge strain gauge circuit. Now, quarter means if all the arms are called as full bridge, then if one of the arms is replaced by strain gauge, that is 1/4 of the bridge is used, and hence the name quarter bridge. So try to understand, this quarter bridge strain gauge circuit has only one active strain gauge in one of the arms. This is called as quarter bridge. If you just go beneath, you have half a bridge strain gauge circuit. What does that mean? Out of the full bridge, two resistances are replaced by two strain gauges, right? So it is also called as two arm bridge. This bridge is called as one arm bridge. This is a two arm bridge, or it is also called as half bridge. So out of the full bridge, which has got four arms, half the bridge, that is two arms, have strain gauges attached to it. So these strain gauges are stressed. As you can see from the arrow marks, don't go by the color code, just look at the arrow marks. This shows compression. The arrows facing each other shows compression. So what will happen here? This strain gauge, where on the specimen on which this is mounted, the specimen is subjected to compression. And corresponding to compression, what will happen? There will be reduction in length, right? And as the resistance of the strain gauge is proportional to length change, as there is minus delta F or reduction in length, there will be reduction in resistance also. And see the other arm now. I have stress strain gauge, which is in the other arm also, but it is subject to look at the arrow marks. Don't look at the colors. Look at the arrow marks. these are moving away. That means this strain gauge is subjected to tensile stresses, and that will lead to tensile strains. Now, what do you mean by tensile strain? In the tensile strain, you have increase in length of the gauge. Now, when I have got increase in length of the gauge, I have increase in resistance. So, I will have plus delta R here, and I will have minus delta R here. You know, getting the point. So, this is the half bridge strain gauge circuit. This, be attentive. Don't look at this part. Look at this right hand side part only. Now the next configuration is full bridge. Full bridge means all the four arms, all the resistances are removed, and all the four arms are replaced by four strain gauges. So it is called as a four-arm bridge or full bridge strain gauge circuit. So what does that mean? R1, R2, R3, and R4. These were the resistances R1, R2, R3, and R4. So R1, R2, R3, and R4. R1 is replaced by a strain gauge. Tell me which is subjected to, look at the arrows, which is subjected to tensile strain. So what does that mean? It will be subjected to plus epsilon. So it is subjected to plus delta R. Look at the strain gauge on arm R2. Look at the arrows. This strain gauge is subjected to compression. So it is subjected to minus epsilon. So it will be developing minus delta R here. Look at R3 now. This strain gauge is subjected to, look at the arrows, it is subjected to compressive strain. So there will be minus epsilon and there will be minus delta R. And look at R4. This R4 is replaced by strain gauge. Look at the arrow. It is subjected to tensile strain. So it will be subjected to plus epsilon. So it will be giving me plus delta R. So this is the full bridge configuration. Then what is one typical observation that you have made? Look at this sketch. This is subjected to compressive strain. So minus epsilon. And this is subjected to tensile strain. This is plus epsilon. So what is the observation? The minus epsilon strain gauge is connected along with plus epsilon strain gauge in the adjacent arm. So opposite natured strain gauges. Why opposite natured? This is subjected to compressive strain, that is minus epsilon, and this is subjected to plus epsilon. So this is subjected to compressive strain, this is subjected to tensile strain, and in that sense they are of opposite nature. One is compressive in nature, the other is tensile in nature. So opposite natured strain gauges are in adjacent arms. Look here in the forearm bridge, this is subjected to tensile strain. This is subjected to compressive strain. So tensile and compressive are in adjacent arms. Now this is tensile and compressive in adjacent arms. Compressive and tensile opposite nature in adjacent arms. Tensile and compressive in adjacent arms. We'll look at the details why they are so arranged. The simple reason is that if I arrange the strain gauges like this, opposite nature strain gauges in adjacent arms, I get output volt deflection. Here also, if I place opposite nature strain gauges in adjacent arms, I get deflection at the voltmeter. If I put same nature strain gauge, tensile in the adjacent arms, what happens is I tend to get null deflection, no output. The reason is very simple. Be bit attentive. Now the initial condition for bridge balance is R1 divided by R2 is equal to R3 divided by R4. R1 divided by R2 is equal to R3 divided by R4. Okay. As I said, all R1, this strain gauge R2, R3 and strain gauge R4 are preferably of same ohmic value, right? So all have initially same resistances. Let us say this strain gauge has a resistance of 300 ohm. I'll select the strain gauge. Second strain gauge is also of resistance 300 ohm only. And these resistances are simple resistors. I can select the resistors of 300 value. So what will happen? R1 is equal to R2 is equal to R3 is equal to R4. Before these are subjected to strain. So initial condition is fulfilled. 300 by 300 is equal to 300 by 300. So I have the balanced bridge condition. Okay. Now when all these are equal, let us put R1 is equal to R. And let us put R3 is equal to R because they are of same value. So this ultimately will have R value and R value. And let us say this is subjected to compressive strain. So original resistance is R, and because of compression, what will happen? There will be delta R, which is minus delta R. So after subjecting these strain gauges to loading, what will happen? The original resistance R will change to R minus delta R in R2, isn't it? Now in this R4 case, this is subjected to tensile strain. So what I'll get? Change in resistance R plus delta R, isn't it? So this is R, R1 is R, R2 is R minus delta R, R3 is R, and R4 is R plus delta R. So let us look at the condition of balancing now. R1 initially we had seen R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4. Let us substitute the values of resistances now after loading. What will happen? R upon R minus dr is equal to R upon R plus dr. Getting my point? Take a piece of paper, write it down. R upon R minus dr is equal to R upon R plus dr. So R and R will get cancelled. And what will happen? R plus dr, if you just do cross multiplication, R plus dr will be equal to R minus dr. So what will happen? Once again, plus R and minus R will get cancelled, and ultimately what you get is there will be effective 2dr resistance that will be remaining, which will bring about deflection in the output at the voltmeter, which is connected here. Okay. So this is the reason why the opposite natured strain gauges are placed in adjacent arms. Okay. And look here now. What is one more typicality that you can observe here? This is, look at the arrows, this 4-arm bridge. This arm is having a strain gauge which is subjected to tensile strain plus epsilon. Look at the opposite arm now. This strain gauge is also subjected to tensile strain. So this is also subjected to plus epsilon. Look at this R2 now. This is subjected to compressive strain. So this is subjected to minus epsilon. And look at this strain gauge. This is also subjected to compressive strain. So this is also minus epsilon. So tensile plus epsilon, compressive minus epsilon, tensile plus epsilon, compressive minus epsilon, plus epsilon, minus epsilon, plus epsilon, minus epsilon. So what is one more observation? What we said earlier, opposite natured strain gauges are in adjacent arm. Now looking here, what you can conclude? Same natured strain gauges will be in the opposite arms. This is tensile plus epsilon. This is also tensile. This is plus epsilon. So they are in opposite arms. Look at these two arms now. These are also opposite arms. This is subjected to compressive strain, so it is minus epsilon. This is also subjected to compressive strain, it is minus epsilon. So same natured in opposite arm. So try to remember. So write down somewhere on a piece of paper. Same in a 4-arm bridge circuit. Same natured strain gauges are placed in opposite arms. Same nature strain gauges will be in opposite arms. This can be a question in MCQ also. In full bridge strain gauge circuitry, for getting appropriate output voltage, the same nature strain gauges are placed in opposite arms. And opposite nature strain gauges, this is minus epsilon, this is plus epsilon, and opposite nature strain gauges will be in adjacent arm. So try to make a note of it somewhere. In 4-arm bridge circuit or full bridge circuit, the same nature strain gauges are in opposite arms, and opposite nature strain gauges also same nature strain gauges are in opposite arm. This is also same nature, and opposite nature strain gauges are in adjacent arm. So it's very important conclusion, so that I get a meaningful output voltage. Otherwise, what will happen is, if I place same nature in the adjacent arms, I will not get appropriate output from the base circuit. That can be proven also. Here also, if I placed opposite natured in opposite arms, now what we said, opposite natured in adjacent arm is expected. Opposite natured in adjacent arm. If I place opposite natured in opposite arms, once again I'll have no output. You can work it out. As I told you in the earlier example, you have the condition for initial balancing R1 upon R2 is equal to R3 upon R4. Use this equation to place appropriate values of strain gauges. If the strain gauge is subjected to tensile strain, put R plus dr, and if the strain gauge is subjected to compressive strain, put R minus dr, and just find out whether I get zero balance or whether I get zero output, whether I get null output, I get some deflection. This some deflection corresponds to there should be some resistance imbalance. If there is only resistance imbalance, there will be some current imbalance, and then only I'll be having some output voltage that is impressed. Okay, let us see the equations now. So one arm bridge or quarter bridge, V output. This equation also you can note down or refer later on. V output upon V input is equal to 1/4 in single arm bridge or quarter bridge. I have 1/4 into gauge factor into epsilon. We have seen what is the gauge factor. Gauge factor is the ratio of delta R by R upon epsilon. We discussed this in last class. Delta R upon R, gauge factor is equal to, the gauge factor normally is designated by K. Gauge factor K is equal to delta R upon R. What is R? R is the original resistance. What is delta R? Delta R is the change in resistance because of loading. So gauge factor K is equal to delta R upon R in the numerator divided by epsilon, that is delta L by L. Okay, so delta L by L is nothing but epsilon. Okay, so what we can conclude now, this is the equation for output voltage. If I try to write down, take a piece of paper, write down V output. I'll rearrange this equation. V output is equal to, I'll take this V input on one side. V output is equal to 1/4 times gauge factor K into epsilon into this V input. Okay, I'll take this V input on right hand side. For all the equations, we can do the same thing. So I'll get the equation for output voltage of this strain gauge bridge circuit. So V output is equal to 1/4 into gauge factor into epsilon into V input. Normally V input is, let us say, 6 volts. So into 6 volts, and gauge factor is normally 2. So 6 into 2 into 1/4 is into strain is equal to output voltage. As I said earlier, this output voltage is varying from microvolt to millivolt. I'm giving input in volts, 6 volts DC or 5 volt DC, but because there is small resistance change, I'll be getting some very small output voltage to the tune of microvolt or millivolt. So I can have a digital multimeter and I can measure this output voltage across these nodal points and that output voltage, and theoretically also I can find out. Let us take the case of the gauge factor is 2, and if I take the strain gauge to be 100, so 2 into 100 into V input is, let us say, 6 volt. Now if I want the output in millivolt, I need to convert this V input into millivolt. So V input is 6 volt into 1000. 6 volt into 1000 I'll take on right hand side. So 6 into 10 to the power 3 into, let us say, I'm inducing a strain of 100. So 6 into 10 to the power 3 is the input voltage into strain of 100 microstrain. 100 microstrain means 100 into 10 to the power minus 6 into gauge factor 2. Normal it is 2. It varies from 1 to 3. So normally for commercial applications we select the strain gauges of gauge factor 2. So if I substitute, so 1 by 4 into 2 into 100 into 10 to the power minus 6 is the strain I am inducing into the input voltage, that is 6 volt. If I want to find out voltage in millivolt, that 6 volts should be converted into millivolt. The 6 volt into 1000 10 to the power 3 gives me the output voltage. So corresponding to the theoretical strain, I can predict how much output voltage my single arm Wheatstone bridge can give. This is theoretical calculation. And practically I can construct a strain gauge circuitry. I have all these known resistances and one arm is connected to a strain gauge, and that strain gauge is subjected to loading, wherein it will generate some delta R, and because of delta R the bridge gets unbalanced, and as the bridge gets unbalanced it starts showing me output voltage. Okay, so experimentally I can find out delta V output voltage, theoretically also I can find out output. Now just look at all the three equations. First equation is for one arm bridge or quarter bridge. What is the equation? 1 by 4 GF into epsilon. Half bridge or two arm bridge. What is the change? 1/2 into gauge factor into epsilon. And for full bridge or 4 arm bridge, I have the equation as V output upon V input is equal to 1 instead of half, it is 1 into gauge factor into epsilon. Please be attentive. Now what is the conclusion looking at all these three equations? Suppose I am developing a strain of 100 microstrain, 100 into 10 to the power minus 6. Okay, this I know. And for all the bridge configurations, I am generating only 100 microstrain. So for the same generated strain, of 100 microstrain, 100 into 10 to the power minus 6, for the same generated strain, just observe, compare these three equations. Quarter bridge gives me 1/4 of the voltage output as compared to full bridge, isn't it? The induced strain is same. Getting my point? Just think over. Induced strain is same, 100 microstrain. Because I am using full bridge, I am using 4 strain gauges, I'll be getting more voltage output in full bridge as compared to single arm bridge. How much more? Whatever output, if I am getting in this single arm bridge, if I am getting output of 1 millivolt, in 4 arm bridge, I'll be getting for the same strain, I'll be getting output of 4 millivolt. It will be 4 times that of single arm bridge. So 4 arm bridge is 4 times more sensitive than a single arm bridge. And how about 2 arm bridge or half bridge? This 2 arm bridge, just be attentive. This 2 arm bridge, for the same induced strain, for the same applied strain, the half bridge or 2 arm bridge gives me double the voltage output as compared to single arm bridge. So this 1 by 4, 1 by 2 and 1 can be called as bridge constants, N, right? So the equation will be V output by V input is equal to N into GF into epsilon. This will be the common equation. So in single arm bridge, N will be equal to 1 by 4, isn't it? In 2 arm bridge, it will be 1 by 2, or in 4 arm bridge, it will be 1, right? Or you can arrange the equation in various ways. I can put generalized equation as V output by V input is equal to N by 4 into gauge factor into epsilon. If I make the equation N by 4 is equal to gauge factor, N by 4 into gauge factor into epsilon, what will happen? The bridge constant for single arm bridge will be, this N will be equal to 1 for quarter bridge or single arm bridge. This N will be equal to 2 because the denominator I have got 4. In 2 arm bridge, this N will be equal to 2. So 2 by 4 is equal to 1/2, isn't it? And in full bridge, general equation is N by 4 into GF into epsilon. In full bridge or 4 arm bridge, N will be equal to 4. If I have that kind of notation, if I write the generalized equation as B output by V input is equal to N by 4 into gauge factor into epsilon. In that case, for single arm bridge, N will be equal to 1. For 2-arm bridge, N will be equal to 2. And 4-arm bridge, N will be equal to 4. So that I get the multiples of 1 by 4, 1 and half, and 1. I'm going a bit faster. Let us slow down. So let us repeat for the same. This can be a question in MCQ as well. For the same applied strain, single arm bridge gives 1/4 of the voltage output as compared to 4-arm bridge, and single arm bridge gives 1/2 of the output voltage as compared to half, isn't it? So these kind of questions can be asked. So all the configurations can be used for building my strain gauge load cell. It all depends on how much sensitivity I want. If I am dealing with larger loads, larger strains, even single arm bridge is sufficient for me. It can give me sizable voltage output. If I got moderate load, moderate strain, I can cope up with 2-arm bridge also. But if my requirement, as I said, in jeweler shop, I am going to measure the forces or the loads to the tune of microgram and milligram. In chemical laboratories, I am measuring the weights or forces to the tune of micrograms and milligrams, isn't it? In some cases, nanograms also. So corresponding to those small values of loads, my strains will also be very small. And uh, as my strains are very small, I need more sensitive strain gauge. So I prefer for smaller forces or smaller loads, if I want larger output voltages, I prefer full arm bridge, isn't it? And for larger loads, I can go in for single arm bridge or for a 2-arm bridge. So in this equation, GF or gauge factor K, I told you this earlier, gauge factor, this also need to remember, gauge factor K is equal to delta R by R upon epsilon. Epsilon is delta L by L. So these are the 3 configurations. There are many more combinations. I can go in for lateral strain gauges also. So in all, there are 7 to 8 bridge configurations. But for our mechatronics syllabus, we need not get into those many details. We need to understand what is the principle of strain gauge load cell. That's enough. This is the additional information which you should know, because maybe you can take up some project of measurement of as I said, we did a project on lathe tool dynamometer, which measures the tooling forces. You can also take up, I tried that project also, you can try that project that case of a spanner that we use, or a torque wrench we call. In today's automobiles, because most of the engines are not of cast iron, they are made up of aluminum alloys. So when the head is connected to the cylinder block, it is bolted. Now when we tighten up this cylinder head with the cylinder block, because this cylinder head is made up of aluminum alloys, we cannot apply the tightening torque, or the tightening torque is the correct word, tightening torque which is applied by the torque wrench. There is a limit, you cannot go beyond certain torque value. Otherwise what will happen is, as the cylinder heads and the cylinder at higher temperatures, they tend to expand. So if I apply more torque, tightening torque, there might be, when the engine is continuously running for hours together, there should be scope for expansion of the engine parts, isn't it? So if I tighten it more, the engine components might not be able to expand to the desired value. So there is a limit for the applied torque or tightening torque. So you can design and develop one strain gauge based spanner or a torque wrench, which can give you the value of the torque applied. So well, commercially also those are available. As out of interest, you can develop one torque wrench. On net also you'll find many more details related to this. Okay, so there we should stop for today, friends. We have seen bridge configurations. We have seen the importance of placing the strain gauges appropriately, so same natured in opposite arms and opposite natured in adjacent arms. We have seen that. Next class will go further, and we'll see exactly how this strain gauge load cell will look like. This is one cantilever beam type strain gauge load cell. We'll study tomorrow or next class. And one more cylindrical specimen type load cell, cylinder type strain gauge load cell. Both these strain gauge load cell, will see the construction, how they work, how the strain gauge circuitry is built, and how it can be used for measurement of force. All these details we'll study in next class. Thanks for joining.